Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse. It's April 15th, 2026. I'm your host, Eric Osterman. For those of you new to Office Hours, this is where we discuss the latest DevOps news, AWS announcements, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A that you won't find anywhere else. Now, real quick before we get started, I am the founder of Cloud Posse. Cloud Posse helps you get production ready in just 2 weeks, and we do that by leveraging the ultimate IAC framework called Atmos. So if you haven't checked that out, go to atmos.tools. So quick note on how to get the most out of today's session. First, the format is very informal. You can engage as much as you'd like. You can ask questions, just use the chat. And if you are curious about any of our open source tools like Atmos, this is a great place to ask. And if you're watching this recording, keep in mind these calls happen live, so don't miss out. You can join us for future sessions at cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, cloudposse.com/office hours. Just register, enter your email, and you'll get a weekly invite to our event. So for those on the call today live, you'll find these recordings at youtube.com/cloudposse after our call. All right, so let's get into announcements. Gonna try something new today. I posted all the office hours links in our office hours channel, so I don't have to spend 30 minutes every Wednesday organizing the slides here for what to talk about. So if you found something interesting, post it in the office hours channel, and we might discuss it here if it's suitable. All right, first thing that caught my attention was research on how to improve accuracy and quality of code. It's not surprising, the finding, which is if you have your agents do their due diligence, basically research the academic research papers on the specific topics that relate to what you're implementing, or research related projects that solve similar problems that you're trying to solve for that task that you have, the results of the agentic coding are significantly better than if you just start from a prompt and start coding right away. So that was this post here on research-driven agents. And you can take advantage of this, quite easily by creating a research skill or a research agent. For example, if you're using Claude Code, and that agent's sole responsibility is to go out and find prior art and other relevant articles and summarize those to inform the context, basically on what you're going to implement. So that was that post. And again, these are in the office hours channel. All right. Next was a post. Actually, I forgot to dig into this too much further. So Astral was actually acquired by OpenAI, and it came out of left field. I didn't see that acquisition happening. Astral makes a CI product, and this is some of their posts on like what they were doing to secure their workflows. That said, I should have looked deeper into this before I brought this one up, so maybe I'll look into that some more. Anyways, check that out. That was Astral. So this was a post that caught my attention over the past week on Kubernetes. So the Kubernetes project, as are a lot of popular open source projects, they're getting a lot of pull requests, a lot of automated pull requests. And there are a few takeaways from this post that I thought were interesting. One was a recognition that for many of their PR contributions that are coming from engineers at companies, and those companies have mandates on their engineers to use AI. For a while, when there was a lot more skepticism around AI, it was the opposite. Mandates, you may not use AI. So this was the first time hearing the inverse of that. The other was, basically whose responsibility is it for the code produced? And in their policy that is linked also in the Office Hours channel, but here in this post, is that you must disclose in the pull request that AI was used and what you used to generate that code. And that's simply relying on what every one of these projects or products uses is co-signing the commits with something like assisted by or co-developed by. That's like what Claude Code does, Cursor, etc. But this is where I thought it got really interesting as well. So it's become such a SEO thing, you could say, for developer tools. So every developer tool is trying to get that little co-commit in there so that that is distributed along with all the commits and all the code generated by its users for, basically hacking the K factor. So the virility factor. So they are expressly discouraging use of these headers because of the influence of marketing on them. And you can imagine the Kubernetes project with its tens of thousands of stars and hundreds of thousands of users. Yeah, that is a thing. So yeah. Any comments on this one? I see some people posting in the chat. One line of code changed, PR size equals 500 KB with a README update, new design docs, agent instructions, etc. I wasn't following that one, Michael.
I was just saying that the size of PRs are going to get bigger
Oh,
with
yeah,
the more stuff that you have to add to it to support your change. Because
yeah,
now, if you have to document the agent that you use, maybe you have to throw in the prompt, you have to throw in the agent's response, you have to throw in
yeah.
the guardrail doc that you use to control the agent. Agents also like to drop implementation docs into well, you can ask for them. I'm just wondering, like, okay,
Yeah.
I added a function, and maybe you get some test code along with that. And now you have all the supporting implementation docs to support your, you know, 200 or not even like 20 plus line PR is now, thousands of lines long. That's all I was saying.
That which brings me back entire. Yeah. Do you remember we were talking about entire?
No,
Um,
don't recall.
this is like VCS or Git reimagined for the agentic age. And I have to imagine that something like this needs to work its way into GitHub as well, because what you bring up is true. Like if you have to start adding all this other context around that commit, just putting in readmes or putting in the PR description or adding skill files or keeping the context of the prompts that were used to generate the code. I don't believe all of that's required, first of all, in that Kubernetes announcement, but I think that's where things are going, and I think that's what you're saying. And that is my understanding what part of the problem that entire is trying to solve. So you have the entire history, in other words, of that code, including the agentic prompts and whatever went into it.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Let's see. Oops. Here. So that was that. Next post was on a renaming that's been happening with Varnish. So anybody who's been around for a little while, like the OG tools for any modern website. One second. For any modern website used to be like Nginx with Varnish thrown in front of it. Well, Varnish has, moved on and it's been around for a while. There's a company around it. But about a year ago, they announced that they wanted to have a proper separation from Varnish software and the open source project. So they created a hard fork of Varnish, but promptly got trademark letters from Varnish Software, and they announced they were rebranding to Vinyl. So that rename just happened at the end of last month. So now Vinyl is kind of like the MemDB version of Redis, you could say. Um, so not unusual in the land of open source, but that's what happened with Varnish. It also triggered a memory of how Fastly was built on Varnish originally. Fastly is a CDN alternative to like Akamai and Cloudflare. But I was curious if they were affected by this at all, but it turns out that they had a internal private fork of Varnish from way back when. And since Varnish, the software is on BSD, there's no obligation to publish your improvements to the code. So that's Varnish and Vinyl. All right, so this was an interesting one, I thought, because of for multiple reasons. One is Cloudflare, right? It's an interesting origin story. It's actually even more interesting if you look into the early founding of Cloudflare and one of the co-founders who I forget what happened to him, but he had a mental health issues at or around the time of their IPO, but that's not related to this. This origin story that I'm talking about is, dude, remember when Cloudflare was just a CDN and then it was just a CDN with maybe WAF, and then it was a CDN with WAF and maybe like Zero Trust and then R2, and then it's grown into its own micro hyper specialized cloud in a number of ways. And along with that has come nearly 3,000 API endpoints and the challenges that come along with that. You might think of another cloud company kind of like that, a lot bigger. That's AWS. And AWS, I wonder how many API endpoints they have. But they had this problem, right? And the CLI is always lagging, and it's always inconsistent, and every new feature, it's a hit or miss if the CLI even supports those new features. So Cloudflare has decided that they are taking a new approach to how they're going to build and maintain their services, including API endpoints and the CLIs that consume them. So they're taking a schema-based approach to that, so that just by defining in that schema, it will be supported by their CLIs and their APIs, etc. So if you're familiar with what AWS did, I think they ultimately called this the Cloud Control API, which you don't hear that much about these days. But anybody have an update actually on that? That sounds like the kind of thing, Paul, you would know something about. Is the Cloud Control API getting any adoption?
It is. I'm sorry. I'm on in a car right now. I apologize for the noise. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little distracting, but it sounds good.
I'll be quick and I'll post in comments later. The Cloud Control API is actually really useful. I had to use it recently for tagging some kind of resource that can't be tagged. It has three buckets. Once you turn on attribute-based access control, the only way you can tag those buckets is by using the Cloud Control API. So it was really neat learning it. It's super useful. It's a wonderful tool, and a lot of Terraform is actually using that now. And so it's parity between Terraform and CloudFormation under the hood. But it's super useful in these odd cases of new resources or new APIs that are not in the CLI yet, and not in the
I think we gotta pause it there. Yeah, it became unintelligible pretty bad. But so there is the Terraform AWS CC provider, which you're referring to. But yeah, let's move that to chat, I guess, and we can talk more about the Cloud Control API next week, because actually I'd be really interested to learn more about it. Last I checked, it was like 100-to-1 the downloads of the provider of AWS provider versus the Cloud Control API provider. So this is something that just popped up again. It was on Hacker News this past week. We'd actually talked about it on Office Hours, but the fact that it came up again on Hacker News, I thought I would bring it up. It is still in private beta, so you have to sign up for the wait list, but I'm really excited about it. Basically, the ability to open lots of tiny pull requests, each one stacking on the former, so that you can make reviews manageable for large code, for large changes. And anybody doing identity development, I'd be surprised if you haven't seen 10 to 50,000 line pull requests out there, and they're unreviewable at this stage, right? So stacked pull requests is a response to that. It allows you to break a large feature into multiple pull requests, and then merge them as a group, which is the other pain of using stacked pull requests. Is you frequently have merge hell as you start merging the parents and then have to rebase everything else that's stacked on it. So Noel is saying that stacked PRs was basically a Facebook invention originally. Yeah, it could be. I forget. There's a tool called Graphite that Matt on our team was a big fan of. I wonder. Yeah, not sure where that puts Graphite. But anyways, nice to see that coming into the platform. All right. So next announcement was, yeah, this one. So AWS, OpenAI announced this new initiative or program that is probably in response to some of the news that Anthropic was getting about Mythos. So I think I underplayed the announcement last week on Mythos that we talked about on Office Hours, and having heard or read some more of the fallout from that, it's just really remarkable. So if you missed the announcement, Anthropic, I think it was last week, disclosed that they'd come up with their most powerful AI model yet, largely due to its ability to reason. And a side effect of its ability to reason was that it was basically able to reason and exploit or hack out of every major browser, software, OS that it was pointed at. So it was so severe that whether it's a PR or not, it was effectively levied or leveraged. They've invited Google, Amazon, AWS, and major software companies to have early access to this model. And it's scary because if any of you watched the old movie Sneakers back in the day, it reminds me of that. They had created this little black box that could decrypt anything. And the risk of that is, of course, all financial transactions and government documents are immediately visible. Well, this is not that. It's not like able to decrypt stuff, but it is this, like, imagine such a powerful AI in the wrong hands where you can more or less productize it, point it at a site, and root it in a matter of minutes or days, which has never before really been possible at that extent. And if you remember the other announcement we were talking about last week on the Linux kernel, how they're getting 2 to 3 vulnerabilities per day submitted, of which multiple vulnerabilities are duplicate from different people, and that never used to happen. So I bring all of that up because, putting that into perspective here, what's going on with OpenAI, they bring up a good point. Like, this old school model where you secure things by just not making it available, just means that the people who need to protect their systems can't use it for good. And, the crooks and the criminals are still going to find a way. So we're hamstringing ourselves. So what they are doing is formalizing the ability to get access to extremely advanced models for the purposes of, security auditing, pen testing, etc., so that mainstream sites out there can get a head start on what is about to be mayhem out there. So Anthropic's, it remains to be said when their new model Mythos will be available for the general public, and even when it is, it's going to be heavily restricted in how to use it. And Noel, you were just saying you got this today, but not available for the Codex client with ChatGPT, only API access or web, which is limited to GitHub. Do you mean Noel? Do you mean this this announcement from OpenAI or trust access for cyber? Because to me, my interpretation was this would be something one would have to be applying to and have vetted credentials, basically.
So I think that they just want to know that you're a person. And I think that this is actually like their difference in their market approach to Anthropic, where they're saying, you know what, Anthropic, we think that you're like making this up. And we're going to give anyone that we can track down access because one way or another, like this has got to get out.
Yeah.
So we're going to get ahead of this. But yeah, you can't do like code edits. You can just do like a security review unless you end up, I actually didn't even go into trying to pay with the API. But I tried to load it and you can load the model, but then it's like, nah, you can't run this in the CLI. But yeah, I also saw like if you've seen recently Claude Opus 4.6, like the thinking of it has actually been reduced where the first step will be multiple steps of reasoning in it, but then subsequent ones are like a slot machine, maybe some, maybe none. And so the quality's gone down. And a lot of people are saying they think this is intentional so that when Mythos comes out, it seems more powerful. But if you go in and tweak some parameters, you can get back like the full thinking on every step. Because I started to see this as well, where Opus is just not quite as good as it was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway.
So I've been following the news, and there was a thread on Hacker News about this as well, about the quality going down. And what you say, I mean, based on my own what I call the cursing index, it's gone way up lately. So it must be related to that. How do I tweak those? Do you have any post on that?
Yeah, I got it saved. I can share it with you.
That'd be cool. Post that in the Zoom chat. And then, all right, let's see here. So that was this announcement. Thanks, Joel, for that perspective. That is an interesting, it is interesting to see how they're trying to get out ahead of Mythos with these announcements. So this seemed really interesting to me. And I don't want to get my hopes up. I haven't tried it myself, but it's the kind of thing I've been wanting for a while as soon as I started using MCP servers and agentic, coding tools like Claude, etc., which is how to manage your credentials securely. Because when you run them strictly in like a sandbox or even locked down on your local host, they're pretty useless if they can't also talk to GitHub or also talk to Linear or other services that you use. So Context is a tool that I think it has two modes of operation. One is it can mint short-lived credentials for the platforms that support it, and it can write those to like your local env file. And that is, moderately more secure. So what that means is even if those leak through some supply chain attack, those credentials are probably invalid by the time they're consumed or used. But the other is my understanding is that it can more or less work as a proxy. And if you've ever heard of VGS.io, very good security, they had a similar concept. Now, this is more general, like just as a way of handling sensitive information in a tokenized manner. But I believe, close that. I believe what it can do is have expose credentials that aren't even real to the underlying services. And if those services want to use those, they have to go via the proxy. So very excited to see this. Has anybody checked it out? It was trending on Hacker News this past week. Okay, so moving on to Atmos updates. We had actually there's a third one here. I don't know why it didn't show up, but I will bring that up as well. So first one was a big thing that we did in Atmos back in February was we announced native CI support in Atmos. And it's one of the only tools out there that I've seen that handles this, which is Atmos itself knows how to interact with GitHub if you are running it in GitHub Actions. So one of the things it can do is post GitHub comments. However, sometimes you don't want it to post GitHub comments, even if you have that enabled, like on drift detection. You might generally enable comments, but then on drift detection, you don't want it to post comments. So we added a feature flag based on community requests to be able to disable comments via environment variables. What are these comments? If you are familiar with Atlantis and you've used Atlantis for Terraform, you'll know that Atlantis can post the plan formatted as a comment on a pull request. Atmos does that natively out of the box as well when it runs in GitHub Actions, and that is what this is controlling. And the other thing that we did was we added support for an additional GitHub token that would be scoped to when you use CI, if you want to use that. So the issue is, ironically, we are using this native CI with a client who uses it to manage GitHub. And to manage GitHub, like using our Terraform components for that to manage GitHub repositories, it needs a GitHub token. But that GitHub token doesn't have the scope to manage PR comments or status checks or things like that. So we need a separate token when we run Atmos and CI, one for managing GitHub, one for managing the CI aspects of it. So if you are using Atmos native CI to manage GitHub, which I have a feeling a lot are because we've had like 4 people opening pull requests over the past week on this. So yeah, actually I should just share that module. So we have a component and a module for this. If you are using GitHub and you need to manage a large number of repositories, very common in enterprise, hundreds of repositories, thousands of repositories, using Terraform isn't a bad option. And the provider for Terraform for GitHub is fully up to date now, supports basically everything you could want to do to manage your GitHub repositories. The one bit of advice is if you manage your GitHub repositories that way, each repo should have its own Terraform state. If you don't do that, you will obliterate your GitHub app rate limits. So that's how this was designed. Anyways, this works really well with Atmos native CI. And if you're interested in that, reach out to us in the sweetops Slack and we can share more information. And then there is one more changelog entry that didn't make it on here I want to talk about. It's really cool. So server-side commits. So if you use GitHub Actions, one of the most common things that anybody doing, any coding with it is a few things. Like if you're doing Go development, you might be running go mod tidy to clean up your dependencies file. Or if you're running Terraform, you might run Terraform FMT, or things to pretty format your code, etc. But the problem is, if you use the GitHub Actions token that is minted automatically for every workflow, GitHub has a circuit breaker that prevents any commits from that workflow to trigger other actions. But that's annoying because you want to know if the changes that you automatically committed break the code. So there's historically been a couple options. The first option is you create a personal access token, you set that in your secrets on GitHub, and then you commit using that. But that has a number of problems. First and foremost, if you're not using GitHub Enterprise, then that token is accessible to anybody with commit access to that repo. So that's why you have to use environments for secrets if you use secrets like that for personal access tokens. The other option is you use a GitHub app, but then you have to install that app also on every repo, and you still have to manage the secrets of the GitHub app. And that's a real pain in the butt. And if you're not using GitHub Enterprise, then you have to also secure, those app credentials are as good as not secure to anybody who has commit access. So one of the things that we did in Atmos Pro was we added a commit subcommand. Atmos Pro is a GitHub app that helps you manage GitHub Actions at scale for mono repos on GitHub. And one of the common things is you want to kind of auto-remediate formatting or auto-remediate other things, but you need to commit those back, and you need those GitHub Actions to run. So if you run now something like this, here's an example of running Atmos toolchain exec, which will install any tools you depend on, then running tofu to format all your code, and then committing that back. And what's nice about this is this works on pull request. So you don't need to use pull request target, which is incredibly insecure. Do not use pull request target. You don't have to use GitHub environments. And instead, what it's doing is it's using Atmos Pro installation token to mint a temporary credential and commits those files back to your pull request using the Atmos Pro app. So then that will then trigger all the other GitHub actions that you have running on that repo. We have an example of how we're using this in Atmos. So if you go to our GitHub workflow folder, we just call the workflow Atmos Pro, but it can be called anything. And in here, couple things. One is we request ID tokens right. That's what allows us to exchange a GitHub token for an Atmos Pro token. We do some go mod tidy here. We install our tool chain. We check and lint our files, and we format the code, and then we commit that back. And then that runs through everything. Any questions on this? All right. So I think that is all the updates I have for today. We'll have some more pro updates next week. I don't have a demo lined up. So Q&A. Hey, Rishav, haven't seen you for ages.
Heyo.
Heyo.
I missed a bit too late. Oh.
Rishav, since I know you spent a lot of time on GitHub Actions for Terraform, did you see we finally released the native CI, I think end of February?
So many things. And I joined one of the earlier ones as well, but I didn't have my name right in the Zoom thing. But I saw you had these like real-time, why is my camera off? Anyway, you had these real-time graphs with like, you could see the Atmos Pro things, and blown away. It looks very much like an actual full-blown application suite, but still driven by GitHub Actions. Very neat.
Yeah, full but the status checks and the plan file uploading and the GitHub commenting and the status checks and the deployment URL, all of that now is in the Atmos CLI itself. So one binary that handles all of that. Now Atmos Pro, which was the thing you saw that does that nice graph. What you're talking about is this. When you open with Atmos Pro, when you open a pull request, it'll comment on the pull request with what is affected. Exactly. But even without that, you can now get status checks on pull requests. See if I have one open here or not.
And that UI or that visual is super interesting where, well, actually, let's just see this through.
Oh, what was that?
That UI is super interesting because I was also just catching up on like the state graph thing that they're doing. We're using Postgres instead to manage planning.
Yeah.
And that seemed very much in line. Yes, it's different mechanisms doing different things, but it's so similar in that, hey, you're making a change. It doesn't affect everything. It only affects a subset of resources. Let me focus you on just that resources and what it impacts, which is great.
Yeah, obviously state graphs is doing this from it's a very interesting way, but it sounds very difficult in practice how they had to implement it. Easy to use, hard to implement. So yeah, and this is doing this on a Git-based approach. What I wanted to show you, I didn't have a open pull request that had the status checks. But let's see here.
Why is it so far away? Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, and this is what I want. So these here all come from Atmos CLI now. And you don't need to use our platform for that. That just happens out of the box now with Atmos. But yeah, this is the table of affected changes. Believe it or not, GitHub yesterday rolled out a change that if you have an image inside of a table, it forcefully displays it as a block.
And it's so new.
So all these, we have a fix rolling out that'll fix that. But yeah, that's
just replace it with like the emojis, like green circle.
There was another hack we found, a workaround to avoid it, but yeah. But yeah, exactly. So then running a plan against everything that was affected here and showing you what has changes, no changes, and so forth. So.
Gotcha. Oh, nice. You have your marketing in there as well. Very solid.
Oh, I'm shameless. We got
Also, that table looks very complicated. I'm guessing it's not a markdown table. It's like an HTML table.
Yeah, that is it's an HTML table because markdown tables, are
they don't support inline styling anywhere near.
Exactly, yeah.
And also, that's a mermaid diagram, I think it's called.
Yep, so that's a mermaid diagram, and that's generated based on the graph of dependencies between your components.
Mental. And I remember an earlier one of these where you mentioned you had you've done a huge amount on auth side of things with things like OID, OICD as just
OIDC, yeah.
Default. OIDC just by default now. OIDC, OpenID Connect. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so this is based on that as well. So what we can do is define profiles like this. So we've redefined an identity here that we have in our stacks to use this provider instead of SSO. So that's really nice because then we can have another profile for humans so that it'll use single sign-on. And that allows total reproducibility, whether you run in CI or you run on your workstation.
Was it? I can't remember if it was recent or not. I remember seeing one of the recent Atmos change logs where there was also some edge case where some people authenticate via one account to get through to another account, and that was something to support for as well.
Yeah, that is support as well, and these identities can be chained. So you can say one identity depends on another identity that depends on another identity, and takes you through that whole authentication chain.
Gotcha.
So yeah, let's see here.
What's going on?
So that was that. Let's see. Brogan says, "Hello, I'm enjoying Atmos a whole lot. I came from Terragrunt. One concept I have not quite cracked is the ability to manipulate a string after pulling it from the module state. Yeah, it's a fair point. It's used a lot by users, but let me explain why. So we do support it, but let me try and convince you not to use it. So let me see here where I go. So just to restate, so for everyone else's understanding, when you break your architecture into smaller states, into smaller pieces, we call them components. In Terraform, they are root modules. Then the good thing is the blast radius is contained. The changes to that component are isolated, and you can control who makes those changes much easier than if it was all in one large monolithic state. But you have a problem, is that what you really want then is to access some of the state maybe that came from another component in your architecture. So this has been something we've spent a lot of time on. And just like Eskimos have, I don't know, or maybe it's urban myth, but they have a lot of words for snow, we have a lot of ways to share state. So the recommended way is to use a YAML function in your YAML configuration. And this is not an interpolation. This is YAML supports this concept. They're called explicit tags. So we implemented support for some custom explicit tags that will retrieve the state from any of your other components and inject it. But what Brogan is saying is that I want to retrieve this, but I then want to manipulate it after I retrieve it. And this is something that is pretty straightforward to do if you're just using Terraform inside of one Terraform state. And it sounds like pretty straightforward to do if you're using TerraGrunt. Well, the same way TerraGrunt does it, we support it, but it's just so freaking slow. And it goes against the kind of what we're trying to do with Atmos by simplifying things. So if you wanted to do what you're trying to do there in Atmos, you can still use one of our template functions. We bury it because we're trying to get people to stop using it. But you can use the atmos.component function, and this will call Terraform output, retrieve that, and let you do manipulations in the Go templating directly. And a lot of people use it. But we find ourselves at Cloud Posse never using it. And there's some practical reasons for it. One is just in order to understand what's going on, it needs to initialize Terraform, it needs to fetch the outputs, it needs to retrieve that. And if you're running this across lots of different stacks, you need to have permissions to retrieve the state from all of those different stacks. And what we do instead is we rely on the YAML function, we evaluate it at runtime, and we make the Terraform, when you can, you make the Terraform module smarter, you make the components smarter, and you do most of the string manipulation in the Terraform code itself. That way, you're just passing simple inputs back and forth. But I've heard valid arguments why not to do that. Sometimes you don't control the modules, sometimes it's another team, sometimes, well, just in the interest of time, you don't want to do that. Well, then this is the escape hatch that lets you more or less do that manipulation, as we show here, a few examples. So I'll share this link here for atmos.component. Also, I think we have another function. No. Yeah. I think it's people have requested that we add our Terraform state function to as a inline template function as well. I don't know if we've done that yet, but this is the other way that we predominantly retrieve that state. All right. So anyone have any other questions? Doesn't have to be Cloud Posse or Atmos. It can be in general, just anything. Or happy to answer questions about Atmos. Oh, someone shared something here. Code storage. Null. Copy link. Let's see. What is code storage? We raised 23 million by CRV to build code storage for machines. Interesting. So Joel or Noel, do you think this is similar to that entire.co or solving something in similar problem space?
So I talked to the guy and I saw it, and they took Git and then they wrote some wrappers around it essentially, and have some nice machine setup. And they're giving you a way to essentially programmatically use Git. So you could do something like, hey, build like LLM, an app, and then it automatically saves the revisions for your users. And so it can do like insanely fast, like new repositories. So like every single user gets a new repository, every single change gets a commit into the repository. It
Uh,
is, yeah, it's pretty cool how they did it. Like incredibly simple when you think about it. But yeah, for me, I was really interested because I run my own Git, and I would like a better LLM interface to Git, just like the way that the CLI for Gitea is kind of not great. And they seem to have this really cool programmatic piece, and it just got me thinking like how about different features and different things that I could program into some new application in the future.
what I'm what I'm missing here is what is like programmatically controlling Git from what I see here. This doesn't jump out at me as something interesting here, but it was what you were describing there about somehow scaling your commits across multiple repos. That was interesting to me, but
Right. They're
um,
like, I talked to them, and their primary use case is like Lovable would use them so that
um,
they can like, I guess there's a few different issues. Like if you've ever run your own Git, you actually run into them. Like I surprisingly have made many pull requests for Gitea
really,
because I run into stuff all the time, which is crazy to me that I would be the only one running into it. But um, it it is a maintenance burden, and when you start like really, like if you were to thrash a bunch of repos, you would it would be an operational nightmare. So I think for lots of new applications where it's like, vibe code an app and then every version you can
yeah,
roll
yeah,
back to real easy, that kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, that is
yeah,
a feature you need to have, but how do you actually orchestrate it? So
yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
get you. Yeah, yeah. Like, yeah, for example, yeah, if you were going to build a GitHub clone, one of the first things you would need to solve is how do you scale creating repositories? And then you're going to have to support forks. How do you manage forks and all that? So this is kind of like the underpinning for all of that, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
I think that there's got to be some more thinking to this too as well. Like um in the future, I think we'll see maybe some, you know, future versions of Git that are a little bit more designed for our actual, modern ways of developing applications. But this was just like the first time I've seen anybody really kind of with this concept anyway.
Yeah, because there's been some, where was it? Was it this one I was looking at? Yeah, I don't know if this was the best one, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, GitHub has obviously been feeling the pain. I think somebody ran the numbers and their uptime is below 90% or something at this point.
This was shortly after the Microsoft acquisition, isn't it?
Oh,
When it
that's
started.
what a lot of people want to say it's tied to. But, there's also been a lot of other things that have happened since then. Um, And obviously, everything going on in the last year or two with AI. I mean, can you imagine the volume of code and increase that's happened? And then the amount of attacks that they have to fend off, and the amount of things that can go wrong with GitHub Actions and scaling that run amok, right?
Just insane. Like I remember reading that, and the number one thing, the component that fails is, as you can imagine, Copilot. But the second most one is Actions. That's a pretty big one. The thing that's underpinning every single status check, every single code quality gate, that's the thing that fails the most often, right after Copilot.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. So it's clear that people are coming for GitHub, at least what it provides. I mean, I really like having a de facto place that everyone kind of uses for code storage, at least at a community level, but I don't know that that's going to hold true for that much longer. And Joel, or Noel, I keep on calling you Joel, sorry. Noel, did you ever look into Entire?
No, no, I haven't.
And
I
that's also
I
open source, it looks like, so it'd be interesting.
yeah, I'm gonna have to look at it. I'd like I spent so much time on my own hosted Git now, but I want to try some like uh Forge Joe is the big one now.
What is it
Like
called? Forge?
Forge JO, and it's a Gitea fork, and there's a European nonprofit called Codeberg,
Yeah.
and I use Codeberg for all of my backups actually,
Hmm.
because it's like, you know, not gonna be not gonna be as vulnerable as GitHub. But yeah, I'm probably gonna try Forge Joe next because yeah, I've run into like blob issues with Gitea and it's not the funnest thing in the world, but and then I posted a link. There's this thing I saw a few weeks ago called JJ, and it's like a Git replacement, but it works with Git. And it was created like for agent use, essentially, like modern development. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I kind of want to try it out, but then I also like don't want to be that guy.
I did see this trending on Hacker News. It didn't, I don't know, it didn't hook me immediately. But the fact that you are bringing it up, that makes me more curious now. Yeah. Let's see what else. Turbo. Oh, th these were the NVARs that you were settings to bring it back to how it used to be, Cloud Code.
Yeah, there's two links there, and like both of these, there's like a caching time, and then there's one is the variable thinking. And so they made it so that like the variable thinking is on, which means I run Opus on high thinking all the time for everything. And it means that it like even if you have it on high thinking, it only does the high thinking for the first step, like the reasoning, and then it'll variably adjust itself. So there's that one, and then there's the cache, and then the telemetry as well. So yeah,
What's about
this
it?
guy's pretty good. He does like every day he has a new post about the new Claude stuff.
Hmm. And what's the deal with the telemetry?
I think that it is adding a limitation into it. So it's like using up some more tokens, I believe.
Suck. All right. Well, we are almost at time for today. Any other in oh here Elvis is sharing a link on saving tokens. Let's see here. Oh, I saw that. Yeah, the caveman. Strips out all non-essential words from the text to save on tokens. Curious, if that has an effect on quality or outcome at all.
I've also heard similar things where if you want to pass in JSON, if you want to save tokens, it might be an idea to convert it to YAML first, then pass it in, just because it has far fewer punctuation marks.
Huh. Interesting. Haven't heard that one. All right.
Wait, was that Ultra a different language?
What was that?
Oh, is that Ultra a different language? It is a different language. Lightful, Ultra, and then what's the final one? The level of grunt.
Oh, here.
Another grunt? Yeah, so if you go search for the next one. Yeah, what's this? There's 4 levels. What's the 4th level? What is that called?
Looks like Chinese to me.
What even is that? The Japanese. Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is it, using a different language encoding like that? I wonder if that could increase or improve token usage.
Well, don't those glyphs represent a word or like multiple words, like more of a concept? So maybe it is more compact, right?
Exactly. That's what I think it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Never thought of it that way. Huh. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for today. That about wraps up office hours this week. We'll be back next week at the same place, same time. If you ever need any more help, we offer commercial arrangements at Cloud Posse. It's how we support our open source. Go to cloudposse.com/support, and we have all different kinds of packages that fit your needs. If you are a podcast listener and you want to catch up on our office hours episodes, we do provide those as well. I should make a link more visible here. It's just at cloudposse.com/podcast. And here's how you can get more involved with what we're up to at Cloud Posse. If you haven't already, register for our weekly office hours. You'll get an invite in your inbox. Go to cloudposse.com/office hours. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel to get updates for the videos that we produce here through office hours, as well as joining our Slack team. And now every link that gets posted there, we'll evaluate for inclusion on office hours. So throughout the week, if you find interesting materials you want to share and that we can discuss, please post them in the office hours channel, and they'll be automatically added to our slide deck here. Note, I will delete too much self-promotion, so use it sparingly. And then lastly, our newsletter. We're running a little bit behind for this month, but it'll be coming out shortly. It's on the editing block, so go to cloudposse.com/newsletter to subscribe to our monthly newsletter. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great start or rest of your week. Talk to you later.